In this video, we're going to connect the roof or the upper section of our Ferrari 308 to the rest of the body in Fusion 360. Hey everyone, this is Matt with Learn Everything About Design, and in this video, we're going to take the Ferrari 308 roof and the A and C pillars that we designed, and we're going to combine them with the rest of the body. This is a very tricky process, so I'm going to start there and say that this is probably going to be the hardest part so far. Because of the way that we design the body, creating this top surface, we are going to have some challenges. We need to delete some faces, and we are going to just probably just have some challenges along the way that we have to face. So with that out of the way, you can start with one you've been following along, or you can download the data set you see on the screen from the description of the video. So at this point, let's go ahead and go into box display mode by selecting both bodies and then using Alt and 1 on the keyboard. And note that we have done a pretty good job of replicating the roof. And I'm going to turn on my canvases just so I can see. Also note that this panel here, depending on the car and the trim, this was actually just not a window, but it could be a louvers or an intake grate or something. So because of the location of the edges that we designed, I'm actually going to carry this sail panel all the way to here. So before I get started, I'm going to take this vertex. I'm going to use Modify Edit Form, and I'm going to bring this forward. And as I do that, I do want to note that this edge right here is essentially where a little spoiler in the back of the cowl will be. And I'm going to adjust that as well. So I'm going to take this edge and this edge here, and I'm just going to move those forward. Now, it's not a perfect representation, but if we go into smooth display mode, that looks pretty good. We're going to need some more control to get a sort of a sharp or a squared corner here. But again, that's okay. We've got some work to do to make sure that that happens. The next thing that I want to note is that the patch layout that we have from the top, and I don't really need to see the blueprints for this, I can hide those. The patch layout that we have from the top, we've got this A pillar that comes down, and we really don't have anything to attach it to. The way that this works on the real car is the A pillar has a pretty hard crease, and I want to avoid actually attaching it directly to this creased edge. While we could do that, it's likely to cause some problems, especially downstream if we decide that we want to make a smooth transition here and potentially bevel that edge. So what I want to do is I want to modify some of the other geometry. And before I get too far into this, I actually want to delete some of these edges. I think we've got too many here. So I'm going to double click, get rid of that one, and double click and get rid of this one. We can always add more back later. It's just going to complicate the process now. We want to keep it as simple as possible. So back in Modify Edit Form, I'm going to take these two faces, and I'm simply going to just pull them in a little bit, and then I'm going to take this vertex and pull it over, and I'm going to take this one and pull it over. Remember, the intention here is to make a nice smooth transition. Ideally, we would want a straight line or one that tapers outward as it gets closer to the fender. Now, as we look at this, you can see that the C pillar or the sail panel is also inset from this. So what I want to do is I want to create another edge relatively close to this one. And then we're also going to end up moving this edge out because this has some thickness to it. We're going to end up probably creating a little extrude off of it and then go back down. So I need to decide what is going to end up disappearing and what we're going to keep. And we are going to have to make some adjustments to some of this geometry. We're going to have to potentially add some more edges in here. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to get that extra edge in there. So I'm going to go to Modify, Insert Edge. I'm going to select this. And actually, let's go ahead and deselect that. Let's double click on this edge and see what we get. So that looks pretty good, except for I want to put it on the other side. And notice how it's not allowing me to put it on the other side. Sometimes it is problematic. It doesn't let you do that. So I'm going to hit X to deselect that. And I'm going to double click this one here because this will allow me to easily put it on the correct side. I'm going to get it kind of close to that edge. About minus 0.8 will work. And we'll say OK. What we've done now is we've added a new edge. And it's kind of hard to see. You'll notice that it didn't actually display anything. If we use Control Z to undo, notice it put it in the center. When we use redo, it didn't put it where we expected. So let's try that one more time. Go to Insert Edge. I'm going to double click on this. And let's go ahead and move it over again about 0.8. Now it's in the right location. This also helps us create the front corner that we really wanted to get. Remember, in smooth display mode, that front corner was a little too rounded for us. So now with the addition of this extra edge, we can actually pull that out and make it more rounded. So before I get too far, let's go ahead and just select some of these edges. I am going to bring this out as well. I don't want to bring everything out. I just want to bring some of it out. So I'm going to do those edges there. I'm going to go to the top view, and I just want to pull them out to the side. I'm going to go into smooth display. Just take a look at what I'm doing. That looks pretty good. I'm going to leave it at that. You can see that it kind of flares forward a little bit. It's probably okay. It's always something that we can adjust later. Okay, so now that we've got the basis for that edge that we want to attach to, let's delete some stuff. So when we're looking at this car, we don't need these panels on the inside unless we were trying to, fake an interior. And we don't need these panels here. I'm going to rotate this around. This will likely stay because the car does have sort of a package tray, back area hood that covers the engine. But I'm going to come all the way back to here, and I'm going to hit delete and get rid of all of those. So this now gives me a situation where I have something where the A-pillar should attach. So I have sort of this edge here, but I still have a surface here. And this is something that I need to be mindful of when we go to attach that. And then in the back, everything looks good, except for this panel doesn't have any divisions, and we really need to break it up. When we break it up, however, we want to be mindful of keeping a four-sided patch. Now, this right here with this straight edge is not going to be the best solution in terms of the shape of the surface. We're going to have to do some work to get that patch layout the correct orientation. But this is a good starting point for us. So let's go to Modify, Insert Point. We're going to be working from here, and we want to go to this edge. And you'll notice that I'm having trouble because that edge is actually hidden. And if this happens, we can always hide the original body if we want to make it easier to select. But the original body is also the reference that we need for where these edges should be. So we might need to turn it on and off, or we could potentially just move the original edge back a little bit so that way we have good visibility on it. And lastly, I'm going to put one here. I want to make sure that when I'm trying to attach the form bodies together, I want to make sure that I'm attaching the proper number of vertices, and I don't want to try to create a T-point by merging these things together. It's not going to work because we're going to typically use modify and weld vertices. So it's not going to work if we are trying to merge those together in that manner. We could use merge edge, but the surface quality gets a little funky, and then we need to use some utilities to repair it. Okay, so now the next thing that I want to do is I want to pull this edge over. So I'm going to go to Modify, Edit Form. I'm going to go to the top, and I just want to bring this edge over, and I need to be mindful of what I'm doing to this back portion. So I don't really care what's happening up here, but I care that this is in a straight line, at least for now. So I want to make sure that at least visually it looks okay. And what we're going to end up doing is we're going to connect this vertex here to this vertex, and then we're going to build out the rest of the model. So that looks okay. We can deal with the rest of this later when we start to patch it, but that's a good starting point. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start connecting the back, and then we're going to worry about the front last. So Modify, Weld Vertices, and then we'll begin up here. We're going to bring that vertex to this one. We're going to find this one. It's hidden under the surface there. We're going to do this one down here to that, this one here to that, and then finally the last one, the edge. And actually, you know what? Before I do this, thinking about this, we're going to have a crease on the back edge of this. So I actually want to take this all the way to the back. And in order to make that work, I need to have another division here. I want to get rid of this surface. I'm going to delete it. The reason that we're doing this is because we have a crease on the back edge. That back edge is going to have a small flat section before it lips into where the taillights are. But if I were to try to crease this sort of C-pillar or sail panel here, then I'm going to be inducing some curvature into the rest of these surfaces that is not going to be good. We can do this with another edge, or we can add a T-point. For right now, I don't know what the best option is going to be, so I'm going to just go to Insert Point and just make another division here. Then we'll go back to Weld Vertices, and we'll bring that down. So now we've got that sort of C-pillar sail panel connected. If I go to a smooth display, it still works. I still have my creased edge here, and I have the transition up into the sail panel. So we could add more edges to get a tighter turn here, and we have to deal with the curvature up top. That is going to come as soon as we start adding some more edges, but this transition is really what I'm focused on right now, and it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the result at the first shot, and then we can add more detail later. The reason that we're getting some sort of funky surface here is based on this patch. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 sides. And we know from history that we really want to shoot for a 4-sided patch. It's much happier with 4-sided. So that is a problem that we are going to have to address. We can address it a few different ways. We can turn this into a 4-sided patch by inserting a point and carrying it along to maybe the middle of this edge here. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes we might need to make multiple selections. Let's go ahead and cancel that, and let's try one more time. I'm going to start from the middle here. I'm going to go here and then try to connect to that vertex and say OK. So now if we take a look at this, you can see that it's carrying sort of a faux crease here. This surface is now the problem. The rest of it looks OK. Again, these are things that we are going to have to deal with. That crease is not necessarily a bad thing, but right now it's not what we want. So I'm going to take these edges and delete them, and I'm going to push that problem to a future me. Next, let's deal with the hood. Now, this is an interesting area because we want to transition the windscreen and the A-pillar into this geometry. So what's going to end up happening if we look at this from the top is the windscreen is where it wants to be. We want the windscreen to, to sort of come out here. But if we just simply connect these vertices together, it's not going to give us a good result. So we need to decide if we're going to delete some more, maybe move some things around, or if we are going to add more edges. And at this point, because I'm happy with the shape of the hood, I'm going to use Insert Point, and I'm going to put one right about in the middle here, and I'm going to taper this back, and I'm going to come to my creased edge and say OK. So I've made a T-point on that creased edge, and if I go to Smooth Display, the T-point is OK. Like, it's not causing any problems that I can see right now. So this gives me a good solution, at least in the short term. This also means that now I can delete these surfaces, and this gives me something to connect my hood to. However, I still have a problem because I don't have anything to connect the A-pillar to. We created this small lip here, hopefully to connect the A-pillar, so that's something that we're going to have to address. As I'm sitting here looking at the patch layout and this T-point that we created, I think the best option is actually to delete this one here, go to Merge, and go to Weld Vertices, and I want to bring this vertex to here. What this is going to allow me to do is still carry that line that I need for this division, and I can now bring this vertex back using Edit Form, and I'm going to connect the A-pillar to it. But in order to do this, I'm going to come to the top view, and I need to bring this edge over. I need to start bringing it over. So I'm going to start by simply moving this out to the right. In this case, I say the right. It's actually down, but on the vehicle, looking at it from the front, it would be the right. And I'm going to start to taper this over, and then I'm going to bring this one over. Get it roughly about the right orientation. We will have to probably adjust these from the front view, but again, I'm looking for a smooth transition. So ideally, we would want mostly a straight line here. So getting it pretty close. We can't use the tool straighten because unfortunately that's going to create an actual straight line. And really when I say a straight line, we're looking at it visually. Let's take a look at this in smooth display. That still looks pretty good. I know the car has a nice transition to this fender. Probably there's going to be a harder crease here, but I'm happy with the way that that looks, at least for now. Now, as we're looking at this, we still have a reasonable gap between the windscreen and the A-pillar, so I need to make some adjustments to these. So from a side view, I'm going to start bringing them sort of forward and down to get them a little bit closer. And then I might need to pull these back a bit farther. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this edge, view it from the top, and I'm going to try to bring it back a little bit closer to where the A-pillar is. And again, I'm going to move these vertices to try to get a straight line. This one is going to be angled a little bit further forward simply because I'm trying to match the angle of the A-pillar as we drew it. So that's pretty close. It's going to get me pretty close to where I need to be. I'm going to rotate and maybe pull this hood line forward just a little bit. I'm going to pull it forward just a little bit. And then I'm going to bring the windscreen down to it. I don't have really good pictures of how this looks, so I have to make some sort of just, guesses onto what it's going to do. Next, we're going to go to weld vertices. I'm going to bring the windshield down to the hood because I'm happy with the hood shape. I'm going to bring the A-pillar here, and then I'm going to bring the other A-pillar point here. Now, before we go into smooth display and take a look at how bad this is, we're going to go to Modify, Crease, and we want to crease this edge and the A-pillar edge. We're going to say OK, and then let's go into smooth display. Now, in smooth display, the windscreen is sort of going backwards, and we would expect that because of the way that the A-pillar and the windscreen moved and the fact that we took out some controls. So we can fix that by, sort of exaggerating the curve. The A-pillars are going to come out as well. And again, we're trying to make sort of this consistent shape. Now, the A-pillar from this view looks fairly flat. If I go to a smooth display, that looks pretty good. We probably need to pull these down a little bit, and we're going to have to add some more control. We probably have too many edges on the hood and the roof, but again, these are all things that we can adjust later. We don't have to get it perfect now. We can sit here and we can spend countless hours trying to adjust these, but for the most part, we're looking pretty close. From this view, I'm going to take a couple of these edges. I'm going to pull them down and in. And then again, I'm looking to make more of a straight line. So I want to bring this one up, and I'm going to make this sort of do a gradual arc around. This one here needs to come forward a bit. I can tell just from looking at it that it needs to come up and forward. And in smooth display, we can see that we've got that nice gradual transition. Let's bring the canvas back and see how close we are. It looks like the entire thing might need to go up a bit, and the hood, where the glass actually intersects, needs to go forward quite a bit. Right? So this is difficult because we can't actually see what we're doing or what we're changing here, but that looks pretty good from a side view. I'm going to take some of these edges here and just simply pull them up. And then I'm going to take the same edges for the A-pillar and the side here. I'm going to pull them all up. Notice that our A-pillar is not quite where we would expect it on the blueprint. And, honestly, it's going to be difficult for us to completely match the blueprint. You can see where it's attached to on the car. We're going to have to make some drastic changes to these locations to make that work. And we certainly can do it. We can pull this back. We can make adjustments here and try to get it closer to the location of the original A-pillar. But at some point, we're going to have to make some design decisions. Again, we're not modeling this for production. We're trying to get it reasonably close to the actual car. And I think that's reasonably close without spending way too much time trying to get this to be perfect. I think it looks pretty good. I can bring this down. We can bring, maybe this edge up or these two vertices up and maybe have this taper out just a bit and then view it in smooth display. We're getting closer to where that A-pillar is. But that's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with those results. There is a lot more work that we need to do, obviously, and I know I say that every time because it's just true. Obviously, there's a lot more that we have to do in order to get this right, but we are getting pretty close. There's not a lot left that we need to do on this body. Everything that we've done so far has worked out, even though there are some challenges that we've run into. Everything has worked out. The shape is pretty good. Once we've actually, tighten up this corner right here, make it look more 70s and less 2000s, we can go ahead and square that off to match the canvas a bit more. We can finish off the back end, at least this section here where the rear window is. And we'll be really close to being done with the major portions of the body. So at this point, obviously, let's make sure that we do save this. We don't want to lose any of our work. And if you have any questions, as always, please put them in the comments. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.